Well, it's part two of the conversation around the agro-economy in Nigeria. As I said, we had to lobby for this one. In case you don't understand that joke, you might want to catch up on yesterday's edition. So, the agricultural subsector, or sector as the case may be, is huge, really, but it can be better. Currently doing 25% to the nation's GDP, even more than the industries, but less than the services sector. But there are a lot of challenges that persist, and we barely scratched the surface yesterday. So we thought to continue on this conversation. As you can see, we have a full panel on this one. It's food after all. It's important to all of us. So joining us to do justice to this topic, to identify the challenges and the solution, we have Mr. Debo Akonde, Head of Agribusiness for Sub-Saharan Africa at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, that's ITA. He's also the Executive Advisor on Agribusiness to the Governor of Oyo State. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Akonde. We also have with us Dr. Onalo Akpa, who is the Director General, Poultry Association of Nigeria, making a comeback in 2 days. Dr. Shoaibu Adamu is also coming back on this program. Is an agronomist, crop specialist, head of agriculture, Abuja Municipal Area Council, Abuja, joins us from our Abuja studio. Both gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And via Zoom as well is African farmer Magaji, who's the founder Agri-Business NG. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on the program. Let's get right into it. I hope we have enough time to do justice to the conversation. I'd like to begin with Dr. Akpa. This is something that made the front page. I just wanted to bounce it off you before we get into the other issues. And it's about Nigeria losing over 2 million birds in 391 farms as a result of flu. Now, this made its way to the front page of the Daily Trust. I just wanted to hear from you on this one. How big a challenge is this?
Well, thank you, my brother. Good morning. It is not the news that the country is bedeviled with an outbreak of avian influenza. Traditionally, during the Harmattan dry season, when we have a lot of wild bird crossing from one country or continent to the other, there are normally outbreak of avian influenza on farms. And that is exactly what has happened today, and it's not very peculiar to Nigeria alone. There are widespread worldwide outbreak of avian influenza. It has become a phenomenon. It has become an endemic disease that has been happening to poultry in the world over. And it is also what has happened to Nigeria this season. Normally during the Harmattan season, we normally have outbreak of this particular disease called avian influenza, and that is exactly what you have seen. And what we do when there is the closer to the rainy season and we come into the dry season, we continue to advise our farmers that, look, beef up your biosecurity on the farms. As much as possible, try to prevent the influx of people onto your farm. Disinfect your materials, your equipment at all times, so that even if the wild bird comes and drop their droplets on your farm, or there is a cross-contamination from one farm to the other, the consequences will greatly be reduced. And that is exactly what you have seen. We continue to do continuous sensitization of our members to beef up and step up their biosecurity, because that is the only way. And this education is continuing from the level of the association at the national level, to the state level, to the zonal level. And unfortunately, there is a government policy that compensation is not going to be paid to farmers.
Just one question, a quick follow-up, Dr. Akpa, if you don't mind. How significantly will this loss impact supply of poultry products within the next how many months?
Well, I think it is impacting negatively on the supply of poultry products, especially those who are into egg production, the table egg production. And then, unfortunately, too, those that are into meat broiler productions are also being affected. But one thing is sure, for those whose farm has never been affected, what we've advised them to do is to step up their stocking capacity so that we might be able to meet the deficit that might likely come out of this disease outbreak that is closing up some farms. And especially the farms that are affected are the small-scale farms who in most cases do not adhere to biosecurity measures and then do not care so much. It is unfortunate. It is a great loss to our members, but we'll continue to educate them and sensitize them. And we believe as the education continues to get intensified and then losing their investment, farmers will be very conscious to step up their biosecurity, because that's the only way you can stop this outbreak.
Let me ask Dr. Akonde, since this is not a new problem, well, incidentally, we started this conversation with poultry, with the poultry space also yesterday. It's ironic that it's also made the front page of the news today. We've always known that every year we will have this kind of situation on our hands. Is this something that we could have gotten ahead of, Dr. Akonde, in terms of research, in terms of things to do to ensure that we don't have this kind of significant impact and we don't suffer the kind of loss that we've had to suffer?
Very much for having me, and good morning, everybody. I strongly believe that this is an avoidable issue, that we could probably have been able to overcome long time ago. Why did I say this? There are diverse national and international research institutes that focus on the issue of livestock research, on poultry, within this country that could have provide support, to the issue of that we have at hand. What I've seen, in my duty of work, is that there has continuously been a disconnect between practitioners and research, and we can't but marry both. If we continue to practice engage in our agricultural practices the way we are doing, without ensuring that we consult or work with people that have the expertise in the areas where we are having issues, what we are seeing now is what we'll continue to see. Organizations like International Livestock Research Institute here in Ibadan, that has been supporting the issue of livestock across the whole of Africa, and has helped in supporting many of these issues that we are raising today in different countries in Africa. Why have we not engaged them, to work on this particular issue? Beyond even the ILRI that I've just mentioned, there are probably also one or two other national research institutes also. That's their responsibility, to ensure that whenever we have issues at hand, research are being conducted in that particular area to overcome the issue. And maybe we even have solution in terms of research that is just sitting down as a research document somewhere that has not been consulted, for this particular purpose. So I think it's an avoidable issue that will have been overcome if a practitioner is married with research.
Mr. Mogaji, do you agree with him? And not just about poultry now, but about agricultural, the agricultural space in general. We'll come to the business of it, the economy of it, in a bit. But the practice is the first stop here in the first place. So on the one hand, we have the challenge of losses perennial that's been happening every year. And now Dr. Akonde is saying that it's something that we could have avoided because we need to bridge practice with research. What in your opinion is the gap, Mr. Mogaji?
Well, I'm totally in support of what Dr. Adeboale said. It's totally avoidable. And I'm happy the president of the Poultry Association is there. I will challenge him, and I will not mince words. The association has the capacity to influence the members. How many members, as much as there's disconnect between research and practitioners, there's also disconnect between association members and the small scale holders. So, so bottom line, the association, I would hold the association responsible for what we have now. Because the sensitization, they have that umbrella capacity, they have that responsibility, but there's a disconnect. Almost all the association is politicized now. If the association is doing the work, and putting pressure on government or lobbying government or pallying government, whatever word we want to say, we won't be having this all year round. The poultry sector has been badly hit. Feed is too high. So even if the small-scale farmer wants to adhere to best practices, he cannot. He's busy trying to raise funding. So bottom line is, how do you start poultry in Nigeria? Who regulates? How many poultry farmers have started in the last 5 years undocumented? There's no standard for anybody to follow. So bottom line is, it starts with the Poultry Association of Nigeria, bringing the state chapters together and ensuring that they do what their members are paying them or aligning with them to do. Enough of government. Government is overburdened right now. Association needs to step up and engage cooperatives to make sure things happen. We can't depend on government with oil going up and everything. We have to take responsibility ourselves as practitioners. Thank you. I stop for now.
Dr. Akpa, you want to respond very quickly?
I want to respond from what the first speaker, Dr. Debo, said, that there is a disconnect between the practitioners and then the research institutes. I will completely debunk this, because by Tuesday, Wednesday last week, I was in Ibadan, and I was with Dr. Tunde Amole, who is the country representative of the International Livestock Research Institute. And we had a lot of meetings and deliberations. And like yesterday when I spoke, when somebody spoke about the alternative raw material to maize and others, I spoke about cassava peel. I had a lot of discussions with Dr. Tunde Amole, and what took me there is to see that how can we pick up from the research selves of what they have done and then bringing it into the sector. And I told you, it is not a new thing. Now people have been involved, but I understood in the last 2 weeks that they've scaled up the research on cassava peel, and that took me a whole week to Ibadan. And that we've been able to do. And then we continue to disseminate this to our people, especially to the feed millers and those who are also involved in toll milling, apart from the commercial feed millers, to toll milling, and then other people who are also doing research in the poultry sector. We are not resting on our oars. We are doing the best we could do. And then the second thing is this, the issue of disease outbreak. The association has a limitation in self-regulation. Limitation in self-regulation in the sense that as practitioners and as people who have been in the industry for years, we know the onions. We know what it is. Nobody puts his money, and we want his money, his investment destroyed. So as much as possible, we try to do the best we can do to self-regulate, and above all, the government does the regulation. The rule establishing poultry farm does not lie within the association. The rule establishing poultry farm lies within the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, especially the Federal Department of Livestock, and then veterinary services. Secondly, the association too is doing so much. Like since Monday up till last night, I've been able to meet with 4 of my state chairpersons. I met with the chairman of the Kaduna State chapter of the Poultry Association of Nigeria on Monday with 4 hours meeting. On Tuesday, I met with the FCT chairperson. Yesterday, up till 9 p.m., I was with the Ogun State chapter chairperson. So this allegation or assumption, rather, that the association is not very cohesive, to me, I disagree completely with this. You don't just assume. You need to. By 9 p.m., I was still in a meeting with Mr. Idowu Ashenugad, who is my chairperson for the Ogun State chapter of the Poultry Association of Nigeria. And the essence of the meeting is that how do we come together? How do we harness our resources? How do we disseminate? How do we help our small-scale farmers? The small-scale farmers, one thing we must understand is that this association is not, there's no a regulation, there's no law that binds, that makes every member, every poultry producer to become a member. It's voluntary. In most cases, a lot of people, it is when they have problem, they come to the association. I have a problem. How do you help me? But payment of subscription, belonging to even participate in dialogue, in educating ourselves, most of them, you call for meeting, they don't come. So I can hardly go to anybody's house. Neither my state chairperson in the states will go to people's house to force them to come out. But as much as we can do, as people who wants to put ourselves together, or who have put ourselves together to see that there is a conducive government, conducive production environment, we are doing it. There are always constant dialogue with the Federal Minister of Agriculture, the Federal Minister of Industry, Trade and Commerce, and the essence of doing this thing is that how can we bridge the private and then the public sector relationship, and to ensuring that we have one of the best and viral poultry industry in Nigeria. And to the best of our knowledge, we are doing that. The issue
let's bring in Dr. Adamu now.
Outbreak.
Yeah, just a moment. Let's bring in... Okay, you can land on that one, so we can also bring in Dr. Adamu. You can just make that point.
The issue of avian influenza outbreak is beyond what any research institute can do. It's the government. We, like the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, well, they could do research. The research you could do, if anybody says we have solutions for migrating birds not to pass through the skies of Nigeria to other continents or otherwise, then we are ready to embrace this and we are ready to work with it. But to the best of our knowledge, we are doing the sensitization, and the sensitizations from the national level that I am, to the zonal level, to the state level, to the local government level. This association is well established, and our people are doing the best they can do to see that we educate our members, because like I always say, I cannot put my money into an investment and I will watch that investment run down. So no farmer will want to put his money into an investment and he will want to see his birds dying because he doesn't love himself. No, that does not arise at all.
Well, Dr. Adamu, so this conversation is very important, and I think it points to the need for more synergy, either with researchers, with those who make policies that affect agriculture or the agribusiness in Nigeria, just so that everybody is on the same page. But for farmers, because you also represent a bloc in that agricultural sector, to what extent do you have collaboration perhaps with researchers, in this case, with the business side of things? Because I know that there's a business angle, okay? There's a research angle, there's also the business angle, and the policy angle. To what extent are you connected? Because we need to identify that before we now say, okay, this is a solution we need to profile.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. Actually, we work with research institutions. Like where I work, I have been in collaboration with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture since the year 2000. That's about more than 20 years ago. And a lot of activities have been done with them. And for your information, the IITA has a substation in Abuja, and we have announced a lot of activities of the institute. And there's even an MOU between the FCT government and IITA. And even with the Institute for Agricultural Research at Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, we collaborate. So most of our inputs that the farmers use have been obtained from this research institute. Sometimes even like the crops, when you go to some of the seed companies, you might not get the best. And because like in the IITA, they have the business aspects where they produce a lot of improved seeds, and we get them for farmers so that they don't plant what is not, that will not give them the yield potentials. And also the VOM, Veterinary Research Institute, like all those of them who are into the livestock and the poultry, we have also some collaboration. And as a local government, at the tier of government, we work also hand in hand with the Secretariat of Agriculture. Like in the state, they call it Ministry of Agriculture. In the FCT, we call it the Secretariat. So we work with them, and we have the poultry subsector, and a lot of trainings have been going on for them. Even non-governmental organizations come to give them lectures, and you see the Secretariat to be collaborating with the area councils where are the farmers within the jurisdiction. We want to train so we want to train this and that. So there are a lot of things that are going on. And like what the discussion that has been going on, to some extent, I will even blame the practitioners. Because for any business that you want to go in, that you want to put your money, you have to make sure that you do a lot of studies. Like the president of the Poultry Association of Nigeria has said, you have to take some take on, especially this period, that this avian influenza used to come. As a poultry farmer, you have to do a lot of activities ready for this kind of period to make sure that when these things come, your farm is not affected. So farmers they have to do a lot of work to avoid. And I believe with my colleagues who said it's an avoidable incident, though I pity the farmers that have lost their birds.
Right.
And again, we work with the Fadama, also the Fadama groups, and we collaborate with them. Like I said, the local government just is a complementary part of the government as far as extension system is concerned, because the agricultural development projects, they handle extension service. In the local government, area council in the FCT, we also collaborate with the ADPs, and we do a lot of work with the farmers. So,
okay.
As I said yesterday, where I head, we have a very robust system where all the 12 political wards, we have the leaders of the farmers. We call them Sariki Nomas. And they have their own association. They have their chairman, they have their secretary, the treasurer. So
okay, Dr. Adam, it's interesting to hear what's happening in your own side. But let me take this back to Dr. Akode. I'd like us to maybe disaggregate the issues. So Dr. Akpa believes that, well, there's collaboration. He said he's had to travel even to Ibadan to get some collaboration with researchers and all of that. So I'd like you to perhaps disaggregate it. When you said that there's a challenge in terms of collaboration, are you talking about, the big-time players, the medium-sized ones, or the ones that just spring up, they have like a little expanse of land and they go into it? What do you mean exactly by that lack of collaboration between practitioners and researchers? And maybe does this even extend to policymakers as well and the business side of things?
Well, thank you very much. I think the first thing to say is that Dr. Akpa, the chairman of the Poultry Association, should understand that my point is not to cast aspersion on the association itself. When I made a statement, I'm making reference to practitioners. I didn't make reference to the association precisely. So I do understand the effort that been made by him. I've been a friend of the association for quite a long time. I'm aware that Dr. Adamu mentioned yesterday the issue of aflatoxin and aflasafe. I led that project for Sub-Saharan Africa, where Dr. Adamu also worked with me, in FCT, to ensure that we reduce the problem of aflatoxin in maize, most particularly because of the poultry industry. And so, I mean, I know poultry industry from that perspective. I'm a poultry association from that perspective. But my point here is that, and these also move across beyond even poultry, is that there are so many researches that has been done and that are in place within diverse research institutes. Having worked with these research institutes, in Africa and working across the whole of Africa, I have seen so many of these opportunities that could be annexed, by diverse practitioners to the use.
Give us an example.
Benefit in different.
Just so we're specific, can you give us an example to broaden this?
So I will precisely move to probably a crop like a soya beans. I've heard that the production of soya beans in Nigeria, of course, is now meeting up with the expected demand, while IITA has worked on a product that is referred to as Nodumax, which can help to increase, the quantity of the of soya beans within a very short space of time. I haven't seen many of the private organizations that are engaging in the issue of soya beans production, even from those that are processing that will have engaged in backward integration, coming to the institute and requesting, to make use of this particular product that we are making reference to. And mind you, IITA is not a profit-making organization. I can rightly tell you officially that IITA being based in Ibadan for close to over 50-something years, it is only 3 or 4 years ago that the Oyo State government signed an MOU with IITA, to engage them as the technical lead for many of the things that they are doing within the state. And that is even a state government, for crying out loud. How many of these do we have on shelf, as a research institute beyond even IITA? And many people don't probably know that IITA is under a particular body called the CGI Center. And the CGI Center, the CGI have more than 14 centers under it. ILRI that was mentioned earlier by the chairman of the Poultry Association of Nigeria is one of the research institutes under the CG Center. It's also based in Ibadan. Africa Rice, who have a lead on the issue of production of rice across the whole of Africa, is based in Ibadan within the same institute. And diverse other research institutes like that as well. How many of those researches that has come from them has been annexed, by practitioners to their own advantage? I haven't seen that much. The best that IITA can do as a research institute is to do research and make available some of those research outcome, but they can't enforce it, on private practitioners to use. I am happy that you disaggregated, the players across the agricultural value chain to micro, small, medium, and large enterprises. And this is one of the fundamental problems that we have that need to be looked into. And I hope that maybe our discussion is going to get to that area as we move further. Most times we assume that we have what we refer to as the small or medium enterprises in agriculture. I've just read a Faith Foundation report, I think 2021, and that is clearly depicted what is going on in the ag sector today. More than 71% of what we call businesses, across board, and this applies to agriculture as well, are micro enterprises. Around just 1% are large enterprises, and what we have are small and medium enterprises are probably in the minority. The fact remains that you can't engage micro enterprise the way they are currently now, and expect them to have the capacity to harness what is currently in place. If we have association, that they belong to, and I'm happy that the African farmer mentioned that earlier, that when we said we have associations, and most of these value chains, we either have the maize association or we have the cassava growers association. How functional are they? In reality,
perhaps that also speaks to a challenge which my colleague referenced earlier. African farmer Mogaji, there is agriculture, and most of the time we look at the sustenance part of it. That's why most of the people who are farmers, small farmers, smallholder farmers, they just have a small farm here, a small farm there, doing a little agriculture here, poultry here, crop here, cassava here, gari here, palm oil here, and all of that. So on the one hand is the practice of agriculture. On the other hand is agribusiness. And there seems to be a kind of distance between the business of it and the practice of it in the education of it. How do you think, if you agree, how do you think we should bridge this gap?
Well, first and foremost, I may be wrong, but I'm in the field. And I've put in 34 years of my life doing nothing else apart from this. Now, I personally don't believe that the rural farmer doesn't understand agribusiness. Anybody that is 55 and above, their fathers likely were farmers who started 1 acre, who was selling cocoa, who built a house, who built a bike, who bought a car, who expanded the farms, who was supporting the extended family. The rural farmers understand agribusiness. It is education and our exposure that is trying to, play little on their knowledge. They understand the business. When we bring money into agriculture, we make all the mistakes they've made. I agree there's a place to upgrade knowledge, technology, and co. But it is not fair on the rural farmers to say that they don't understand agribusiness. But that's what everybody says.
And the business. If they understand the business, Mr. Mogaji, how come we still have post-harvest losses in fruits and vegetables up to 50%? Last year, we hear it's about 51% to the tune of 3.5 trillion naira every year.
So the thing is, because they don't have any other livelihood, they still have to produce. We are the ones that ought to ensure that as we're coming in, many of us that try to produce, we have no business with production. Many of us ought to go into processing, logistics, the other value chain, but not production. We're having more losses because we're having more people come in, ignorant people come in, but mean well. So they go and compete with those rural farmers who their products are already is that we need more people to come into the value chain as against going into production. That is why we are having increasing post-harvest losses. Everybody is trying to produce. Name it. I've worked with bank MDs, EDs of insurance companies. All of them go and they lose quite a lot of money because they go into production as against going into the value chain. You bring in their knowledge, in the insurance and banking, bringing their business management into another value chain. That is the reason why Nigeria is where we are, not the rural farmers. They are there. Come rain, come shine. Government support or no intervention, they will farm. Can we have other Nigerians who are more exposed, who are well-traveled, who understand diplomacy? Can they pick other value chains as against compete with them? Because this is what happens. Now, when we compete with them,
pardon me, what are the other value chains available? I think it's important to mention. So there's a farming end of it, but apparently there are host other value chains. Can you mention them? I imagine a lot of people listening are wondering, which of them can I invest in?
So we have logistics. Logistics is huge. Logistics meaning moving vehicles. That you can move with the trucks from the north. You can move with buses. There's cold chain, which is even moving this farm produce in refrigerated reefers. This is not for the rural farmers. You also have the input, the seeds, the seedlings and co. That is also there. Storage. If you go to India, where I've been a couple of times, storage is mostly private sector or cooperatives led. There's storage. There's even processing, which is adding value at cottage level. In Zambuk in Gombe, take for instance, a basket of what we call the household tomato, 50 kg, will be sold for 300, 400 naira. And in Lagos is 150. Just setting up a small cottage ketchup in Zambuk village in Gombe would reduce all that. There's even services where we bring in our knowledge, branding services. As a brand expert, marketing expert, media, even media. There's media in agribusiness as a business. The value chain is huge. There's training, there's input, like you produce the equipment, fabrication. It's huge. Even aggregation. Some people, what we call middlemen, they are aggregators. So there's so much. The fashion industry, if you go to Nigeria Conservation Foundation around Aja area, buttons, you have seeds that can be refined, polished, just polishing, and they use it as, we call it eco-friendly buttons.
But Mr. Magaji, I've heard this conversation time and again, identifying these value chains, and I'm talking as far back as, 15, 20 years ago. So these things have been there. But let me take this to Dr. Akpa. Being a practitioner, especially in the poultry subsector, the price of egg these days, we know how much it is. I know some will say, it's not just eggs, it's across the whole board, but let's focus on that one. Perhaps we can then extrapolate. Is the price of egg today high because of that lack of value chain addition or the lack of presence in those value chains? Is that something you also experience in your subsector that you'd like to maybe expand on?
Well, thank you, my brother. Like I said yesterday, the price of egg, maybe because it used to be the cheapest source of protein, people are saying the price of egg is now too high. The summation of why the price of egg is high today is what I said yesterday, and let me repeat it in a nutshell. The prices of raw materials, some have gone over 300%. The devaluation of the naira that has made the cost of importing micro-ingredients so high, cost of the import duty, other taxes, and when you look at it, it's a factor of what is my production cost and what should be my selling price. And when you want to look at it from the economics of poultry, no farmer today that is operating at a surplus. I will tell you that no farmer is making money. Today, you see a price of egg going as much as, in some markets, 2,000 naira, in some places, 2,100. But I'll tell you that the farm gate price of most of the eggs produced by my members is not more than 1,600, 1,700. And as of now, there is what we call a glut. You see, because of the low processing power of the populace, a lot of people don't have money to buy egg because they consider egg and chicken today as luxury. Every person wants to go into grains, cereals that they can use to fill in their stomach, drink water on top of it. Nutritious food is what a lot of people are not going for now. So you discover that because a lot of people are producing and the processing power of people is low, our farmers even are crashing their prices to be able to sell so that they can feed the birds, because you can't keep the birds without feeding them. Whatever they produce is also used to feed them against the other day and subsequently. So the high cost of egg as of today, if it is beyond 1,000, if it is above 1,800, is not the doing of the farmer, because the farmer in most cases, apart from supplying outlets, don't have the time to start going into marketing. So there are people who comes to the farm gate, buy most of these things, take into the market, and then sell them. But if you want to compare
perhaps
what
that
you
also,
have as the price of egg
also
in the past
speaks to
and
the
today,
value chain
the high cost of
addition.
production.
Well, perhaps that also speaks to the value chain addition. Just 1 second, that African farmer Mogaji spoke about the other time.
Second.
Okay.
Just 1 second, I just want to add one thing.
Okay.
The cost of adding value to egg, like egg powder, like egg liquid, is heavy investment. This heavy investment, you need to do it in places whereby you can have collections of good quantity of eggs to be able to add this value addition. There's already somebody in Ondo State, in Akure, who has set up an egg powder machine. He's doing it. And then we're also discovering small-scale value additional equipment that farmers can put it on their farm. If you have a glut, you change, you
Dr. Akpa,
you process it into liquid,
I guess that's
it into powder.
That's another angle to the conversation, and let's hope your members are also listening and can learn a thing or two from this. Let me ask Dr. Akonde one question, and this is an issue I've raised over and over again because I fear for the future, especially in terms of food security. Most of the people who are on the fields, you all may agree or debunk this this information or this fact from my own end. I haven't done any research on it, but I can at least extrapolate from what I know that most of the people who are farmers are elderly. And one is wondering how we can solve the problem of food scarcity in the future, food security for the country, to get that done as the younger people grow older and many don't want to go to the farms. So, Dr. Akonde, you are working with a governor in Oyo State, with the governor in Oyo State, and you perhaps might be able to speak to the responsibility that states have in making agriculture, the practice of agriculture, appealing to young people so that they can take interest in it and produce for the country all across board in the coming years. There is a state in Nigeria called the food basket. I don't know how much food we're able to bring from that state, for instance. So can you speak to what state governments can do to ensure that across all value chains of all products, crop farming, animal farming, and all of that, we have food security in the country? What can states do?
Thank you very much for that question. And you don't need to have done a research to make that statement. It's factual. Although research has been done, we know that an average age of farmers, across board in Nigeria, and the same thing applies in most of the countries we've been to in Africa, above the age of 65 or more. And it is also well known, maybe with the exception of the likes of the African farmer, Magaji, and few others, that generation below them up until the age of 35 are not in agriculture. The best, they will probably be like Dr. Adamu and myself, probably engaging in research, and Dr. Adamu sitting as an administrator and all what have you. But realistically on the farm, we don't have too much of those generation engaging in agriculture. And that is a major problem because when that generation that's currently engaging, the practitioners in agriculture fade away now, then it becomes a problem. Now, let me quickly give a calculation for you. Oyo State, as a state, is seated on a land around 28,000 square kilometers of land, bigger than the whole of the southeast of Nigeria combined. bigger than Rwanda as a country. When I did my analysis and I look at the issue of the smallholding and the current numbers of farmers that we have now, we can, and this land that we have in the state, over 70% of it they are arable. Of course, the area that has been cultivated is very minimal. If we use all the farmers that are in the record of the state, I don't think we can do more than 9% or 7 to 9% of the total land that we have in the state that we can cultivate. And that is where I have a little bit of issues with continuous focus on peasantry or subsistence form of agriculture alone, without considering what we refer to as commercial or industrial agriculture at this particular stage of life. Now,
I apologize. We don't have so much time. Please speak to the engaging young people in the space. So as to secure the future.
That is exactly where I'm going into. So now, if you want to fill that gap, if you want to engage in an agriculture that require innovation, you need to start doing what is referred to as agricultural education now at this particular stage of our life. Oyo State government, I can use this as an example, and I'm happy that some of the states within the country has also borrowed leave from what Oyo State government is doing. As a matter of fact, the government of Madagascar and that of the PRC came to understudy these same processes that we are adopting within the state, with what we call agricultural education program within the state at both secondary and post-university level. We have started engaging in training, not just in training, but training in agribusiness that looks at the current innovations, in agriculture, and to make them, the younger people, to see agriculture from a very different perspective, a strong mindset changing, and issue of, and also training them to engage, in terms of the practical aspect of agriculture.
And training them to engage. Strong. Pardon me, because of our time, I'd like to also take this to Dr. Adamu, but you've made some very important points. So, Dr. Adamu, recently the CBN governor, who's been very, very interested and involved in the agriculture sector, was reading out some of the interventions that the central bank has made. He talked about the anchor borrowers program, saying that, they've actually dispersed to 4.52 million smallholder farmers cultivating 21 commodities across the country to a tune of 975.61 billion naira. He's also talked about the commercial agriculture credit scheme and all of that. I'll ask you a two-edged question. How much has that impacted from where you sit on your practice, on what you do, the business of it? I'm talking about government intervention, because I recall African farmer earlier on saying, well, government has enough on their hands, so it's high time that the practitioners, as it were, came together and took the matter in their hands. So how much of government's interventions have actually impacted on your business? That's for Dr. Adamu. And what more can be done?
Thank you very much. I would also say that, like in the FCT, the farmers have not actually benefited from the anchor borrowers. We started, but along the line, it couldn't work. And we went into accelerated agricultural projects too, and that is also maybe we'll be able to actualize that this year. And because of that,
the anchor borrowers program work for your farmers?
Yes,
pardon me, just to be clear, why didn't it work for your farmers? You said you accessed it a bit and then it stopped. Okay. What happened?
Yeah, actually, like at my own level, I was not handling it. So it was in the process. They couldn't, they started very late last year, and incidentally, the COVID-19 issue came in, and that is where it got stopped. From there, we have not, the FCT is very likely that maybe this year we're going to be part of it, and it's not coordinated by the area council. So I have very little to say about that. But what Dr. Akande has just said, I have a very case study in FCT where the government actually intervened and involved the youth in agriculture. I headed the program, we call it Community Empowerment Agricultural Initiative under the Millennium Development Goals. And we, in fact, presently, if you want to intervene in agriculture in the FCT, you have, and you want to really get the grassroots farmers, you have to go through these youths, and we call them millennium farmers. What we did is to engage the youths into agriculture is to make agriculture attractive. And they reduce the drudgery related to agriculture. What we did was we engaged communities, we established community farms, and we provided all the input, including tractors. And only what the farmers were doing, we allowed them to do manual planting. But otherwise, no weeding, they use herbicides. And at the end of the harvest, we aggregated whatever they produced then, and we provided the market windows.
All right.
And in fact, even FCT bought in 2011-12, the buffer stock of FCT, especially from the maize, was provided by the youth of FCT. I could remember vividly that time, the maize they produced, the budget that was made for maize was about 32.6 million, and that was all, taken by the youths. And we provided a lot. And in fact, other states were even coming to have a case study in the FCT. And currently, we have them, and we're even on e-commerce, where we have the information that
we have to run now.
Produce now from
but
FCT.
Clearly, there's a lot more we can do, but we really have to close on this topic. This is in no way the end of it, but we'd like to thank you so much for the interventions made. Dr. Shuaibu Adamu is an agronomist, a crop specialist. He's also the head of agriculture, Abuja Municipal Area Council, Abuja. Right next to him in our Abuja studio, we've also had Dr. Onalo Akpa, who's the Director General, Poultry Association of Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And joining us via Zoom, Dr. Debo Akonde, who's Head of Agribusiness for Sub-Saharan Africa at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture and Executive Advisor on Agribusiness to the Governor of Oyo State, as well as Mr. African Farmer Magaji, the founder, Agribusiness NG. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.